Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Claire Andre Hirwa. I work for Rwanda Agriculture and Animal Resources Development Board. I'm happy to see you all here discussing about knowledge management. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mupenzi Mutimura. I work for Rwanda Agriculture and Animal Resources Development Board. As a scientist, I'm doing research in animal nutrition and production systems. I'm very delighted to be here. I've seen the whole program of the conference, all side events. Have very nice, good topics, but I chose to come to this one. As our sister said, knowledge is the key, is the core resources. So managing the knowledge is a paramount importance. So that's why I'm here, and I'm happy to welcome you here in Kigali, in Rwanda. You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'm Asina Paul Ndeimana. I also work at the Rwanda Agriculture and Animal Resource Development Board in the horticulture program. Our main focus is research and technology transfer on fruits and vegetables. And I'm excited to be here to know how we can manage and share knowledge. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Henriette Kaba. I'm a communication officer for CORAF, West and Central African Council for Agricultural Research and Development. I'm also the presenter of our web TV called Agripreneur TV, and it's a pleasure for me to be here. It's my very first meeting with all the knowledge management team. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Peter Ballantyne. I work some of my time with ILRI, the International Livestock Research Institute. I used to be the head of communications and knowledge management. I've been kind of doing and observing knowledge management in agriculture for a very long time, probably a little bit longer than Andreas even. And what's really exciting is to see the next generation of people working with knowledge management and agriculture. That's really something that Africa needs. In previous lives, we've spent a lot of time trying to build capacities in knowledge management, communications. So this looks like it's really happening. That's me, Peter. Benjamin also asked me to say something on behalf of ILRI. Since I'm the senior in age, my colleagues here are actually full-time staff, but I'm part-time only. So we're really, really happy to be associated with this CADEP XP4 knowledge management for agricultural development exercise. Some of our top staff have been in the process. They've been champions. They are champions. We hope more will be there. We're really, really important for ILRI to work together as a CG center with other CG centers, but also with the regional organizations, the national organizations. All the knowledges matter, and for us to have impact, you have to have impact. Knowledge is really one of the most critical assets that we can bring. So on behalf of ILRI, I'm really happy to be associated, and we're really pleased to be here. And I don't see where Benjamin is. Oh, Benjamin's over there. So I think I'm short enough. Let me pass on the microphone. Thank you very much. Looking forward to interacting with you all.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is Haiga Shao. I work at ILRI. ILRI already spelled out, so I'm not going to repeat. So I'm one of the privileged people to be the graduate of the 2022 Challenge, plus be honored and happy to learn to get the coaching from Peter Valentine, who's we consider him as the father of knowledge management, to be trained, to be coached by him. That makes me, again, another privileged person. So what excites me, I'm very much excited to see many knowledge management practitioners in Africa, which will help us to exploit the potential of Africa and also to capture our indigenous knowledge and to make impact of that. So I'm very happy and excited to see that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bridget Kakua Kasongamlido, and I work for the Center for Coordination of Agriculture Research and Development in Southern Africa, CADESA. I'm I'm very, very excited to be here. And what excites me the most is the addition of the 21 new KMers, the managers that we are going to add on to the already existing one. So it gives me lots of joy, especially that I see the results from those who graduated last year and 2021 and 2022, what they are doing. So looking at you and envisioning the impact that you are going to give to the field of agriculture just gives me hope that there's more that is going to come out of this group. And with you in your various institutions, we are going to have people who make data-based decisions using the knowledge that you are going to provide. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Lerang Maruping from Kadesa as well. I'm a finance expert by profession, and I've got a fear of missing out. So I just had to be around the ICKM experts just so that I don't miss out on anything. Thank you very much.
I will say something about her later.
Bonjour à tout le monde. Je m'appelle Tuya Beruben. Je représente l'Institut de recherche agricole pour le développement, IRAD du Cameroun. Ça a été une belle expérience de participer à ce challenge et c'est un challenge comme son nom l'indique. Et on espère que nous en tirerons davantage. Merci.
Merci beaucoup.
Good afternoon, everyone. Boss Sede from IC International Institute of Tropical Agriculture. I work in Knowledge Center as Information System Officer and in charge of knowledge repository CG space. Two things that make me happy are number one, seeing the faces that we have been working together online for 3 months. It gives me joy. And the second one, the training really exposed me to better way to manage the knowledge of Institute. We have been trying as Knowledge Center doing our team, but this really empowered us, my team, to manage the Institute knowledge better. God's willing.
Thank you. Now we've reached the full table.
Okay, my name is Narcis Yawenu. I come from Waskal, but I'm also a PhD candidate at UDS, University for Development Study. I'm also a knowledge management candidate. And what is interesting here is I know about resource management. I know about data management, but about the knowledge management. It was very interesting for me to hear about how to manage the knowledge. And I go through this challenge, this training, and I learned it. I know that it's something very important for us in organization, for development, even for agriculture, or in environment, or in any one sector. It's very, very important to handle the knowledge management. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Simon Mkuze. I work for Kadesa Finance. I'm here to see where our resources are going as far as knowledge management is concerned and to learn a few things in terms of knowledge management. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. My name is Simbarashim Tamiri, also coming from Kadesa. I'm working on financial management, not knowledge management, on the Upside FSRP project. I'm happy to see you and appreciate the good work that you're doing. Thank you.
Bonsoir à tout le monde. Moi, c'est Nondé Jidainari Israël. Je suis assistant de recherche à l'Institut tchadien de recherche agronomique pour le développement ITRAD. Je suis très heureux d'être là parce que la gestion des connaissances, c'est un nouveau concept, surtout dans notre institution. Donc, je suis très heureux d'être là afin de bénéficier encore d'être outillé pour pouvoir mettre en œuvre une stratégie de gestion des connaissances au niveau national. Merci.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would have translated for Israel, but they are trying to teach me French in the last 3 months. Hasn't worked at all. So my name is Oluwaseun Akinyemi. I work with the Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria. I'm here because CORAF has made it happen for me. Knowledge management has been part of my academia. So it's been an exciting journey. The last 3 months has been fantastic. I've met fantastic people. I think that's all I can say for now. And I'm hoping that this community of practice, as it continues to grow, that I get to meet more interesting people. Thank you very much.
So my name is Amek Akoto. I'm from Ghana, and I'm a CIKM at AFAS. This is my second time of attending KM conference. The first one, I came to represent my executive director. This time, I'm here as a candidate for knowledge management. Thank you, Prof. Great work you're doing.
Good afternoon. My name is Etienne Niyigaba, and I'm from Rwanda, and I also attended the knowledge management challenge last year. So with the few things that escaped me last time, I want to catch them up in this session. So I'm also here to witness what you guys have been through during the last 3 months, and it's an honor to meet every one of you. Thank you.
And he is our country rep, so he's also our host.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Shadrach Makombe. I'm from Zimbabwe. I represent Zimbabwe Commercial Farmers Union. I'm the president there. I also represent all the unions. That is a chair, of course, it's rotational. But when it comes to knowledge management, what impresses me is the way it has been made simple. You'd find this is a new block in terms of knowledge, but the way it is being done, you'd find even the grassroots will come to understand. Because you'd find, given the situation where I'm coming from, quite a number of farmers have become victims of ignorance. Not that they don't know, but the way things have been put to them. So I commend this one because it's well researched, and the way it is tackled, it goes down to the grassroots. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name is Godfrey Onagwa. I'm a knowledge management practitioner certified by PARA and this community of practice. I work with the National Agricultural Extension and Research Liaison Services, Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you. I like the emphasis on certified. The same as Etienne and a few others. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Patricia Mascati. I'm a system scientist with C4 ICRAF. I'm actually playing catch up. I'll listen in and say something maybe.
Thank you. We haven't said much, so even what you've said is still enough for us.
My name is Dinah Anyomi. I'm the assistant to the executive director of FARA. I'm here to support you during this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. So Dinah is automatically our mother. Then we have the last person physically here, whilst we prepare to also introduce those online. Tech, your name?
My name is Ibel. I'm the technician.
Technicians don't talk much. They press a lot. Okay. So to round up the introductions, we have a number of our colleagues online. Please, can you project the online participants? We have online participants, please. I'll mention your name and then you just introduce yourself. Unmute yourself and let us hear your voice. First,
hello.
I have Jarkis. I know Jarkis is a
Yes.
certified KMA.
I'm here.
Please, you are muted so you can talk.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jack Tavares.
We can't hear you.
Do you hear me?
Hello? Unfortunately, the sound. So we'll move. Jack we are seeing you. He is our KM focal person for Cabo Verde.
Do you hear me now?
Unfortunately, we can't hear your voice.
Oh.
Hopefully, maybe we'll come back to you again.
Okay.
So let me move to the next, and then we see how we adjust. The technician will support you. So the next person is Omari Kungu. Omari Kungu, are you ready to talk?
Hello, good afternoon to all of you.
Yeah, check from.
Yeah, my name is
from his side here.
Yeah, my name is Omari.
Okay, Omari, sorry. We will fix our audio issues here so that we can hear you.
Good.
Let's try the next person. And we have Justin. Justin Shirima. Can you please? Okay. So from Jackson, we have some of our KMS who are joining us virtually. Yes, you can. So those of you who we can't hear you, you type your, the introduction of yourself as text. Now we have Guy. Unmute yourself and let's hear from you.
Hello to everyone.
I think it's from our system here.
Can you hear me?
Yes, good. Now we can hear you.
My name is Mam Astagay. I'm from Senegal, and I am a researcher in the field of agriculture, and I'm at the Cheikh Anta Diop University. And it's my first time to the knowledge management for agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you. We are glad to have you. We hope you can stay with us as long as possible within the next 2.5 days. Next is Justin. Justin, then next is Amanda. Okay, let's go back to Tavares. Maybe this time, let's try and see.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi, I'm Amanda Mtembu. I'm from South Africa. And I am a strategist by profession. And I just shared in the chat there a copy of one of the newsletters I put together, because one of the things we learned when my family went into agriculture was that Black people have land, but we don't really know what it is that we're doing, and we tend to lose a lot of money. So we just try to contextualize the areas of agriculture that are profitable. My husband is currently working for a company called Hello Choice, which connects farmers to markets. And I previously lived in Nairobi in Kenya, but I've also been to Kigali in Rwanda. It's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Amanda. So let's try Tavares. Then we go to our KM candidates who are online. So Tavares, can you try
Okay.
again?
Do
Yes,
you
we
hear
can
me?
hear you now.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Jack Tavares from Cabo Verde. I'm very happy to join the meeting, the conference. And also, I thank you very much for inviting me to join the knowledge management family. Thank you very much and good success for the conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Tavares. So now we go to Jean-Louis. Jean-Louis would introduce himself fully.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Yes, my name is Jean-Louis Chisambu from Democratic Republic of the Congo. I am one of the knowledge management candidates from DRC, and I am a national focal point for CADESA. I am very, very glad to see you now in Kigali, and I want to recognize my group, the first group, Zuma, Dorcas, Mabel, and Rubens, and I greet you. Thank you. I'm very, very happy to see you in Kigali.
Thank you, Jean-Louis. Lavi. Lavi is next. So Jean-Louis, you'll be with us. You receive your certificate online.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, next is Lavi.
Hello, everyone.
We want
Hi,
to
my
see.
name is. It's good to see you too. So, my name is Kotato Lavi Tipo, and I am from the National Agricultural Research and Development Institute. I'm an intern here. I'm really happy to see everyone here, my group members. I see that they all made it. I'm really happy, and well, I'm looking forward to seeing how this unfolds. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lavi.
Yeah.
Please stay with us till Wednesday so that you would be graduated accordingly. Now we have the next. Please, can you just show all the participants? Check. Next, I think we have Henry, and then we may just conclude. Henry Njakwe or Alexis Mbombo. Okay. All right. So I just to save a little more time, we would pause the introduction here, and then but we recognize everybody online. At this point, I would love us to just stand up and give ourselves a very loud clap because we've earned it. Thank you. So Tech, can you project the first presentation? I think you've made the presentation that Professor Andres and I are going to make very simple, because the things we are going to say are virtually the things that you said for us. Now we want to just give a snapshot of why we are here. Why we are here, so that for the benefit of those who do not know why we are here, it will help them to understand what has brought us this far to this place. Are you? Okay. So I think I just want to start the presentation whilst our tech guys sort us out. I want to use this opportunity to thank you all for making it to this very important conference. As I mentioned, the Knowledge Management for Agriculture in Africa conference is an annual event that we have over 4 years now, or around 4 years now. We've tried to maintain it. It's an initiative of the CADEP SP4 institutions, the CGR, and other partners that have joined us along the line. And from the CG, we have ILRI playing the leadership role in terms of the collaboration. This is a lighthouse initiative. We call it a lighthouse initiative because it's one of the flagship initiatives of the CADEP SP4 and the CG. This initiative is also an initiative of Africa that is being adopted from the global initiative on knowledge management for development. The KM for ACT, which we call it in short, now I can use that acronym, has come this far because we have had very competent facilitators. For the past few years, we've become globally recognized.
Like as we heard this morning,
we've become globally recognized.
Progress, one could say, right?
And okay, I suspect there's a connection that is not cut from somewhere. Yeah, so it's become a very important initiative for us, not just as institutions, but for the countries that we work with. We have had the opportunity to collaborate, not just among ourselves as AR4D institutions or agricultural research for development institutions, but also with the NAS, the National Agricultural Research Systems, which include the ministries, the National Research Institutes, the extension systems, and associated institutions. So this is an initiative that has come very far, and we can confidently say that it's going to be sustainable, or it's been sustained up to this point, and it will continue to grow. Now, the good thing about it is we have built a critical mass of knowledge managers, knowledge management enthusiasts, and knowledge leaders who at any point in time can take on or take up very important roles. So this and many more has been the driving force for us up to this point. We are very privileged to be here as the fourth Knowledge Management for Agriculture Conference. And the conference is just a component of the Knowledge Management for Agriculture Development Initiative. The initiative is made up of two stages. The first stage is a challenge where we go through a 3 months very engaging sessions among the facilitators and the learners or the candidates. And that 3 months helps us to produce a number of knowledge products. And these knowledge products are not just meant to drive our institutions, but is connected to the whole overall, the whole of the knowledge ecosystem in Africa. You still don't have my presentation? Okay. So the reason why we are here, I just want to run us through quickly. The reason why we are here is because we have gone through the 3 months knowledge management challenge, and we have met here to achieve a few further results. First is to graduate the 2024 cohort of the Knowledge Management Challenge. Secondly, we are here to give the opportunity for the participants or the KM candidates to demonstrate the kind of learning and sharing that they have gone through over the period. We are also here to officially induct the successful candidates. Yeah, we are here to successfully induct the candidates into the knowledge management community of practice. We mentioned at the beginning that we have had 2 cohorts already. We have over 50 persons who are KM fellows, certified knowledge managers for sustainable development. And this is an addition. So we have about 21 more to join this community. You would all appreciate that this community has been a very sustaining platform. And there's no knowledge that you'll be looking for within this community that you won't find somebody at least having some bit of knowledge about it to share with you. Now, we are also here to discuss and kind of validate an outline or a plan Africa Knowledge Management Report 2025. So we are coming to discuss what chapters would be very necessary for an inaugural knowledge management report for the continent. And finally, we are also here to generate political support and commitments from leaders, from government representatives, private sector, farmers, youth groups. We are here to galvanize the political support for knowledge management as a field of practice. So all these culminate into the kind of outcomes that the workshop will produce.
Well, thank you so very much, Prof. I think
the workshop
we are getting there when we start talking about the integrity
So,
of some of the findings that we get.
the workshop will produce. I think we will all just
One of
talk.
the questions is, why would a politician,
Please,
you know,
are you able
dismiss
to
a finding
disconnect?
that will help him to achieve his political objectives? And I think you provided you know, an answer. And we
Okay.
also need to further
So,
interrogate. and
let's try to see whether we
to-
can
to
counter them.
Why do all our research institutes
Yeah.
have to be dependent?
So in all, I mean, we have
funded
graduate
by our
this
own
year,
government?
4 days.
Direct or to take their findings.
Fortunately, if that we'll be having here, we would be presenting you at the main plenary as the new cohort of knowledge managers. And the outline for the knowledge management report will also be another resource that we'll be presenting at the main plenary for validation. Then your admission into the knowledge management community of practice would be another deliverable that will be carried to the main plenary on the last day. So we want you to just enjoy the sessions. It's not supposed to be too, yes, it's official, but for us as knowledge managers, we always know how to make our sessions very exciting. And we believe that within the next days, we will make it more exciting. Please, can you go to the last slide? We will have to definitely change the process of the whole we planned. Move to the last slide where you have the logos. So we are expecting, or we are about, the participants here are about 50. We have other people that will be joining us as and when they are interested from the other events. No, this is not my presentation, please. The other one. The one you projected. No, not this. Just go off this one. Okay, so once we sort that out, let me just use this opportunity to recognize the partners in this very important process. First is the ICKM working group. That's a knowledge management working group of both the CADEP SP4 and the joint CADEP SP4 CG partnership on knowledge management. This has been one of the very important platforms. We also want to recognize the Knowledge for Development Partnership, which is led by Professor Andres. The strongest backbone for capacity. Status coming from academia, from industry, from private practice, individual consultants, and that is how come we've managed to get to this level.
Innovation.
We want to also recognize our partnership
when you look
with
at
the Young Professionals for Agricultural Development, YPAC. They are the youth wing of FARA, and this is very important. But most importantly, we want to recognize the institutions also behind all this working group that I mentioned. And for this year, we are very privileged to have the Interfaces Project, which is implemented jointly by the German Development Institute for Development and Sustainability. Fortunately, we have Michael here today. Before I end, I'll give him the chance to just say something, 1 or 2 minutes. We want to recognize Wascal, ZEF, the University of Applied Sciences in Bonn, and the University for Development Studies, who are all partners within the Interfaces Project, and the other research projects within the German-funded Sustainable Land Management Project. Finally, we just want to recognize IFAD and the European Commission, who have also been the key support to us. And so that is why you see their logos almost everywhere. But yet the start of the KM for Agri was 100% supported by the European Commission and through IFAD. But as we have gone up to this stage, we can say that for this year, maybe it's only about 50% that is supported by these institutions, but the rest are coming from other institutions, not from these the ones that I've mentioned. So please enjoy the sessions and make sure that you get the best out of the conference. As we've always said during the training, knowledge management is not just about sharing information. It is also about connecting the human beings within the sharing process. And that is very important for us. So before I conclude, when we started, Michael was not here. We will just give him 1 minute to introduce himself, and then just a goodwill message. Then we hand over to the facilitators to take us through the rest of the program. Thank you.
Say something. Yeah. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Is it working? Thank you for the word. I was not prepared to that, and I have also nothing to add. But 2 things. I'm very curious to hear what is the outcome of this challenge. I haven't heard it myself, although many of these practitioners are from our projects. I'm very curious. And the second thing is the funding is coming from the German Ministry for Education and Science. So it's not a typical cooperation project. It's for the case of Germany, it's quite a new kind of funding arrangement. That's what I have to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. All right. So at this point, I don't know if Prof want to say something, and then we hand over to the facilitators to run us through the rest. Otherwise, we would like to invite the two key facilitators for this year's KM for ACD. For the first 2 days, we have 3 key facilitators. 2 will move us from today to tomorrow, and then another one will take complete on the last day. So at this point, let me invite Abel Shu. Please, let's give her a rousing welcome. Please, she's not a Korean. Neither is she a Japanese. She's Mabel Shu from Cameroon. And then she will be supported by Kwazi Zuma. Maybe this Zuma may be related to the former president of South Africa or the next president. So at this point, I will hand over to them. Let's give them another round.
Good afternoon, colleagues. This is quite critical. So I think gonna have 2 sessions. So the 1 hour or 30 minutes next session will be on presentation from. So I will hand over to Mabel to introduce, and we'll have the break. Then from the break, we'll have presentation from the 4 groups. So Mabel, over to you.
Thank you very much, Zuma. Speaking of gender inclusivity, I have a problem with the table that has Amek and Olu. I don't know if any of us can identify a problem with that table. We have a very big problem with that table. What are they wearing? Invisible clothes. Okay. So looking at that time, we were supposed to have another 2 hours to run through the session. So our next presentation was supposed to be the draft outline of the inaugural knowledge management report. So I'd like to find out from Professor Andreas, how long do you want us to give you to do the presentation? So initially, it was scheduled for 1 hour. Is it going to be the same level of understanding for all of us?
Be short and concise. Is that okay? Okay. Thank you very much. Could I ask the colleagues to shift the presentation, please? So, colleagues, fellows, friends, partners, I'm happy to have you here, and I'm happy to share with you a new topic that we have not discussed so much, only partially in our last months. Actually, it is a topic about reporting. And you can say reporting is about monitoring and indicators and evaluation. But the knowledge management for agricultural development report has quite a potential to be an interesting and relevant instrument for our whole movement. And you may think a report, oh my God, this is about...
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Doc.
Welcome.
I think
You're not key message from your intervention. One of the key messages from your intervention.
Okay. I will speak louder than the competitor. Okay. So a report can be, of course, a summary of indicators and can be boring and bureaucratic, but a report can also be very engaging and mobilizing. Have you ever heard of a report that has really changed the world? You know, some of those very impactful reports in history that even have the title report. I would like to introduce one of them to you, maybe the younger ones among you, who may not remember that so well. Have you heard about the report of the Club of Rome, The Limits of Growth? Anyone heard about that? A few, yeah. The Club of Rome indeed has been a club of scientists who thought, we should address this topic of environment and the impact of population growth and the never-ending industrialization. Can that really continue? And they have been quite bold, and they used some, let's say, algorithms to, let's say, simulate what will happen if the population grows and grows and the industrialization and all those consumption continues, what will happen to our Earth? And this report was so impactful that it really has changed politics. It was a sort of starting point for the whole green revolution. All those green parties that we have, at least in Europe, there are many of them, that promote environmental protection as their core value. All that roots in this time, the early 70s, and it has begun with this report. What will happen if we continue like this? And it was frightening. So it was really an engaging report. Okay, can you continue? Next. Next. Yeah, do that. Continue here. So it was a relevant topic at the right time. They have used somehow bold assumptions, and those algorithms may not have been really 100% true, and they, of course, they have been criticized and scrutinized and everything. Can you continue? Maybe you can give me the... So, however, although they have been criticized, 30 million books in 30 languages and the origin of green politics. And I wonder, where is the party for knowledge? Do you have a party that at the heart promotes knowledge in your country? At least in Austria, there is no one. I think in most countries we don't have that yet. However, we all know that knowledge is one of the most critical resources. Even when we look at the SDGs, we have 17 SDGs: hunger, poverty reduction, education, health, you name it. The 17th goal is called partnerships for the goals. And if you look into the details, it's about knowledge sharing, innovation sharing, mutual learning. It's about knowledge. It's the knowledge goal. And it's the last one because it seems not to be a goal on its own, but it's the foundation for all the others. So in fact, we are working with the critical foundation for the advancement of our planet. And that really deserves a gong, a really engaging and awakening report. So that's what we really want to do. I want to introduce a bit, give objectives, references. structure, key elements, and so on. Please continue. I think 10 minutes are already gone, Mabel, huh? Before I even have the outline. Okay, please go ahead. So, the KM for ECDI report. Of course, KM for ECDI is a bit of reflecting the movement that we have established only 4 years ago. However, we all agree that knowledge is at the heart of agricultural development. Throughout the engaging activities that we had during the last years, we have developed a number of concepts, policy briefs, strategies, initiatives, even in a quite systematic and nicely developed and presented manner, like most of all, and specifically, the knowledge agenda for agricultural development, which is in the Accra Declaration. It is the continental knowledge agenda. No other sector has that. It's a really big achievement. But even beyond this agenda, we have many KM strategies of organizations, policy briefs on knowledge inclusion, knowledge dissemination, capturing knowledge. So we really have done a lot. And it has been it is in support of all the governments, of all the partners of SADC before. So you can say, wow, everybody is on board. So now we are changing the world.
You spoke about
Ever,
own research agenda.
while the general support may be huge, the real implementation is not yet
how can the
managed.
African civil society,
So
the
unfortunately,
private sector, think tanks, and
the implementation
academics
does not have
engage
a
in bridging the
governance.
gap between
It does not have
researchers
a detailed
and
operational
policymakers?
plan. It does not
Now,
have
related
smart
to that
objectives.
is,
And it does
something
not have the
that,
budget for the
you
implementation.
actually triggered. That is,
So
who
the
funds it?
introductory and then
But
also
then there is
concluding
also the
statement will be that
question
the
who
KM for ECDI
produces
report
the
can
research,
help
which
us
is
to
sometimes,
determine very
not all
precisely
research
what
that
we
we
can
have
do
continent
to
actually
advance
by
knowledge for
Africans.
agricultural
They are
development
destined to us.
and provide us a
And
management
there is no
instrument
content
to guide
or
the
even
implementation in a collaborative
theoretical,
manner.
Foundation.
Next slide, please.
Underlining or underpinning those research.
So a report like that I want to present and option will help us to assess where we are now in more detail. So to have a precision, how is knowledge management established in the countries currently? Because if we don't know where we are, we can also not really determine where we want to go and how. So the second aspect would then be that the report helps us, due to a clear structure of what we want, to determine where we want to go, to communicate the strategy, how we get there, to monitor the progress, evaluate, learn from what we are doing, to review the strategy, are the goals good? And also, and this is maybe even the most important, to mobilize the people. I would say, first of all, their thinking, but then also the resources. Because as long as we talk cloudy, knowledge is important, we need to share knowledge, everybody will say yes, and end of story. However, if we put our finger into the wounds that we have, and there are many, and we say, you are wasting 70% of your money, dear donors, because the money that you give the impact will disappear as soon as the money goes. As soon as the funding ends, the people go somewhere. The knowledge is not captured and preserved and sustained. The achievements are not upskilled because lack of knowledge management. And then people will understand all our efforts, all our money, all our good intentions are lost because we don't have a knowledge management plan. and practice. So, next slide, please. Next slide, please. A report should follow some guiding principles to be effective. First of all, we should really focus on what is important, what is relevant, what is painful. Because actually, this report of the Club of Rome was not so much talking about what they wanted to achieve, but what is going wrong. And it's also almost always easier to change the perception if you put the finger on the wounds than to put the carrot somewhere in the future. So we have to really focus on what should be improved. The report should have a clear structure, what we want to achieve and what we need to achieve our goals. We should be able to communicate it and we should learn from it. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So in order to make an impactful and beneficial report, we need an agenda, as we have it already, but we need to be more concrete and more operational. We need to define SMART goals. You know, SMART means it's strategic, it is measurable, applicable, time-bound, and resource-related, and so on. So very operational. We are lacking that so far, and that's why we cannot manage it. The second is we need governance. If nobody is responsible, or if all are responsible, then nothing will happen. So we need to form a partnership to implement all this. And then, of course, we need resources, and that requires not only money. Money will not do a lot. We need the people, we need the commitment, we need the passion to do it. And we need contributions from all partners, because a central whatever unit at FARA will not know what's happening in Chad and in Uganda and in Senegal and all over the continent. Next slide, please. Most of you will know this model. It's the Knowledge Management for Agricultural Development framework, and it structures the way how knowledge produces value. And when we measure, we cannot only measure what we want to achieve as an outcome. Everyone who knows about the theory of change knows that we need to distinguish between inputs, outputs, and outcomes. And this is even more important for such a intangible resource like knowledge. I don't want to explain it in very detail, just in general. We want to achieve sustainable development in agriculture, that's for sure, on organizational level, on sectoral level, and thereby contribute to sustainable development in general. So when we talk about organizations, what do we want to achieve? We want, for instance, the farmers, and we consider farms as organizations. We want them to have available the knowledge that they need to perform well in their operations, in farming. Because if the farmers had available the latest technologies and everything about production, soil fertility, land management, etc., everything would be nice. So that's what we want to achieve. Of course, we want an agricultural sector that is knowledge rich, where the partners work together, where we have a sharing culture, where knowledge is accessible to each and everyone, like equally for men and disabled, as we have discussed. We want the indigenous community to participate and contribute in a fair way. So all these are aspects of the sector. But how do we achieve that? For instance, we convene national knowledge partnerships to engage people. We establish knowledge hubs and we run them to avail knowledge to everybody. We provide trainings and so on and so on. In all your AM strategies, you have developed so many of these measures of knowledge services and products that you want to deliver. However, to deliver this well, we need some key knowledge assets. And some of these assets are here. The human assets of competent knowledge agents that can transform the continent, that have skills in knowledge management. And all of you here, I think you are now capacitated and you are passionate. That's what we need. We also need structural assets like all our sub-regional and regional knowledge hubs that will enable the countries to perform well on the ground. So I consider all these databases and knowledge hubs of FARA and so on as a resource for you as national leaders to deliver this in your country. And the same on the relational assets. The fact that we have a community of knowledge managers, but also other communities and partnerships that we have, they will help us to deliver these services in the countries. Are we on the same page? However, this knowledge requires a number of activities. Due to the KM for Active Challenge, as an example, we have all these skilled and certified knowledge managers. Due to the conference, as an example, we have this kind of partnership and friendship and fellowship. And there are many other activities that we have to do in the background to have those strong resources to provide then good services in the countries and to achieve this impact on the ground, which is the farmers, the agricultural players in the countries. And of course, all that requires management, leadership, and evaluation. Next slide, please. Am I still on within the 30 minutes? How much? I have 2 more minutes. How much do I still have? 15 more minutes? I have spoken only 15 minutes. Thank you so much. I hope it's interesting. Next slide, please. So, but what should be the content of what we propose? What do we put in this report? And luckily, we have already a knowledge agenda developed in 2021, agreed and endorsed by all the partners. Of course, things change and we may adjust it, but already we have a substance, and that's good. The agenda, knowledge for agricultural development. I hope all the participants and fellows know it very well because it's a core instrument. And in the center, we have knowledge partnerships and agendas. So, of course, we will propose that knowledge agendas and knowledge partnerships will be established in the countries. Then we have knowledge inclusion. So it's already what I mentioned. We have to target knowledge inclusion as an objective in the report. Knowledge awareness, knowledge management excellence, national knowledge hubs, all that has to be reflected in the knowledge report. And actually, it's not so difficult because even you have put it in your KM strategies. Next slide, please. Go ahead. Of course, the knowledge agenda is not the final goal. It is our direct goal. Because we as the KM community, we are not the only responsible people to achieve the Malabo commitments or the CADEBEX before agenda. We are contributing to it, but we are not the only ones who are working on that. So I think those very general measurements are not our direct goals, but they are the indirect goals. So let's also keep this in mind. If our knowledge agenda does not contribute to the Malabo commitments, we are also on a wrong path. Next slide, please. Go ahead. So I have presented, I present you here as potential structure for the report. Of course, this is just starting point. You may say, let's do it different. Executive summary, introduction, then we would present the framework. so that people understand what are we talking about. We should clarify our objectives of KM. And as I said, this is not Molabo. We have a KM agenda. And then we should address one by one those components in the framework. Each component should be addressed. Like the life cycle, the human assets, the structure assets, the relationship assets. Then our services, what are we doing to advance knowledge? And then, of course, address the impact, concluding with what are we doing for the management and how do we learn ourselves. That can then be concluded with an overview of indicators and a conclusion. Next slide, please. Based on my experiences on knowledge reporting, I see a very big risk of focusing too much on indicators. Indicators should not be mixed with the goal itself. If all of a sudden people start to look only at the indicators, it will be mostly very misleading. So one has to first understand what is really our objective. So whatever we do, we should explain with a narrative what we want. We should then support this by some indicators, but not too many. The big gurus of measurements have always said you cannot really follow more than 5 to maximum 15 goals at once. Then you are distracted, you are misled. And if you look at the big companies and you ask them what are your strategic goals, they will maybe say 3 to 5 big strategic goals. Because if we present a list of 100 goals, it does not help us really. So each of the components should have only 5 to 10 key objectives and indicators. But even for each indicator, we have to be, for each element, we should be descriptive to describe what is happening. Indicators just support our argumentation. The indicators themselves will not explain too much. The second is to be reflective. What does it tell us? What do we learn from it? And third and most important, a report cannot be only history-oriented. We need action, a call for action. So I think that is a sort of guidance. Next slide, please. Could you click once again? It's good to have the titles at the beginning already, not at the end. So what do we have to do to achieve such a knowledge report? And I said, without someone who is responsible, we will not achieve it. So first of all, we need to engage a group of people, like those people in historic times, the Club of Rome. We need to have a group of people who are really responsible, who have the dedication, the resources, the mandate, the time, and also the competence to do it. On that basis, we need to make more concrete and manageable and measurable the agenda. Maybe even some review would be good. Then, of course, communicate the strategy widely and engage people for their implementation. And again, it requires a team to evaluate and monitor what is going on. So let's not just start rushing into some numbers and indicators if we are not able to use this instrument as a management instrument. Next slide, please. So we'll not have time to go into all these details, but I will just highlight some. So when we look into the life cycle, So this was the very initial beginning. What are we doing? We are trying to manage knowledge. We are trying to acquire knowledge, to share, to create, and so on. So what are we doing? We are implementing challenges. We are establishing the Knowledge Management for Agricultural Development Center. We have already conceptualized that in 2022 as a resource to manage and operationalize, to launch and facilitate the KM for Active Partnership, as I have. All these are very fundamental activities for the whole initiative. The KM for Active report would then be later on also a management activity, or to facilitate the KM for Active community of practice. All these are activities in our knowledge life cycle. Next slide, please. Then what are the human assets that we need for this whole initiative? We need trained and certified knowledge managers. So the objective could be, just as an example, objective 2026, to have 30 certified knowledge managers per country. Because in many cases, we only have one in a country. That is good, but it's not yet enough. 30 would be better. It's not yet the ultimate, but the immediate next goal. So what can help? What can be done to achieve 30? Of course, more participants can join the KM for ACTI global, continentally, but maybe we can also have a KM for ACTI challenge on a national level. So to have 30 at once, and they are not only trained, but we set up a national knowledge partnership, we set up national activities. That would be very reasonable. Of course, we also want KM courses at academic level to train such people. We want to integrate KM modules into existing educational programs. So that will help to, let's say, strengthen the human assets. And the centers for knowledge sciences, they will help to create those human assets. Next slide, please. Structural assets. What could that be? I think it's a big achievement and a good foundation to have the KM strategies established in the NARIs and in those organizations who shall then drive the implementations in the countries. Because if the NARIs, for instance, and the ministries for agriculture, they don't have KM established, they cannot provide the services and products in a sustainable and professional way. So all these strategies, when they are implemented, will really establish strong institutions. Then the knowledge hubs, they are critically important, specifically the regional, the sub-regional, but even more the national knowledge hubs, because they are the foundation to deliver then services to the end consumers. Integrated knowledge organization. Wow, that sounds confusing, but what I'm talking about is the taxonomies and knowledge graphs. If each organization has a different way to organize and structure knowledge, then the searching, finding, linking will be difficult. If we have one integrated knowledge graph, which is like a taxonomy but more advanced, then we can benefit from all our resources and knowledge hubs much better. And we can develop applications, artificial intelligence solutions, much more effective. So these are just examples. Let's move forward. Next slide, please. And for all this, we have objectives and measures and so on. Relational assets, an inclusive KM for ACTI community. I think the group that has worked on knowledge inclusion this year has educated us. that we should even have not only gender equality, which I think is quite good, but we also should have more disabled people, because they can help us to provide knowledge in such a way that disabled people can access the knowledge. And as long as we don't have them on board here within our group, our concepts will not really be strong enough. National knowledge partnerships, that is a critical relationship asset that we need to develop. And of course, the national agricultural knowledge agendas to be developed and facilitated. Next slide, please. So now we have all this, the national partnerships, we have the capacitated people, we have the knowledge hub. What do we do with all of this? We develop national capacities. Now we train the farmers, now we train the cooperatives, now we train the governmental, everybody in the country to be more knowledgeable, more knowledge competent. We facilitate the national knowledge partnership. We establish and facilitate thematic communities on soil fertility, on crop selection, and knowledge inclusion, and so on. All these activities, developing digital services and apps, and to be continued. All these activities will help us to develop knowledge competent organizations and knowledge competent sector in our countries. And that is what we finally want to achieve. Knowledge competent farmers, organizations, governments, and so on in the countries, right? Next slide, please. So there is another list of services that you as national drivers can implement. I don't read everything here. But for instance, you can also have a national KM for ACTI conference. How should your people in the countries be aware of all this if they cannot join? Next slide, please. Now for the products, I'm not so much in the detail because there is space for more collaboration on these topics. But we are producing not only knowledge products and policy briefs, but scientific articles, maybe those technology and innovation briefs or conference proceedings, whatever we want to do to help people perform better. Next slide, please. Then, yeah, that is not, the title is wrong. That is now the impact side. What we want to impact. And I would say organizational development. We want KM knowledge competent organizations, not so. So what is the KM maturity of the key KM for the partners? Partners are like ministries, NARIs, extension system, maybe some pharma associations and so on, key partners. But then we can look into the wider community. What about the farmers? Are the farmers competent to access knowledge, share knowledge, apply knowledge, and to which extent? Okay, so that is the organizational level. Then we have the agricultural sector development. Here we can evaluate. Have the farmers the knowledge available to increase productivity? Because that's actually what we want. Do we have strong national knowledge cultures? Like sharing, convening, learning, adopting, innovating, investing in knowledge. Is that the culture that we have? Do we have the skills at citizen level to access knowledge? Do we have the digital skills at citizen level? What about the fast adoption of new technologies? Are we good in adopting new technologies? How long does it take until an innovation really reaches the farm? Knowledge, indigenous knowledge identity, knowledge inclusion, information quality, all this is what we want to achieve. on national level. And I left out the continental and global level here. There is space for more clarification and discussion. Next slide, please. So the leadership, management, and learning component is not so bad already. We proposed in one of the let's say 21 agenda, we presented knowledge talks of leaders to really lead the implementation in the countries. Regular commitments, leadership statements for knowledge management. National K4D conference to clarify where we want to go, to have a clear agenda forward, and so on. National K4D awards can help to recognize the pioneers and the achievers. You know, leadership and culture always requires also recognition. On the learning part, we are proposing the report as one key instrument. Of course, we can measure and evaluate the innovations from year to year. And I would say even the national and the continental KM for Equity Challenge is an instrument to reflect and learn and to improve. So we have instruments, and now that should be integrated and managed. Then really, if we do all this, we have a managed approach to knowledge on the continent. I think that would be really worth to go into those details and to become more concrete and manageable. And if we do it well, like the Club of Rome, then this will not only go to a few politicians, but it will go all over the continent and maybe beyond. Even maybe it will impact other sectors like water and biodiversity. Knowledge is not only in agriculture. Knowledge is everywhere. And the whole continent can benefit from this. Maybe we can be the leaders for a very fundamental change in Africa. So that is my call for action. And I stop here because we will not have time to do any more group works, but it was really good to share this, and your feedback and your comments are most welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Andreas, and for keeping to time. The one thing I picked out from his submission is knowledge is not just for agriculture, knowledge is everywhere. And he also mentioned that there was a need for us to clarify our KM objectives and to have an assessment of where we are currently. So the next speaker is also going to be taking us through knowledge management in Africa, and he would also help us in identifying where exactly we are now and where we are going. Prof also mentioned that if we don't know where we are, it's impossible for us to know exactly where we want to go. So based on his submission, I just want to find out if there's any feedback, clarifications, questions for Professor Andreas. I know that the food has set in and we are a little slow now, but any questions, clarifications for Professor Andreas? Yes, Benjamin, please. You have the floor, but not my mic.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Prof, for a very well thought through presentation.
Okay, so this is a very important presentation, and it will be good even if not, we don't have time now. We would have to make time in the course of the conference to come back to it, because it's going to be the document or that we are going to use to develop a continental knowledge management report for next year. 2025. So I would want us to pay attention. I know many of you are preparing for your presentation, so your mind is, hopefully we will come back to it again, maybe after you've presented and you're a bit relaxed. But this is something that for me, I want us to engage a bit more. This approach for me is very good. We also we may want to also look at it from another angle, or from another angle where we are looking at also giving giving, let me not say it's another angle, maybe clarifying a bit more as to if the thematic area has been presented constitute a chapter. And if it's a chapter, if each of them is a chapter, what kind of expected like content are needed in each of them? So for instance, we are talking about maybe knowledge management assets. What are the chapters that we can develop from it? Sorry. So what are the chapters that can be developed from it? So we would need to interrogate this a bit more, provide more clarity, so that if we say, okay, one chapter talks about knowledge hubs, ILRI has done a lot around knowledge hubs. So what do they already have that we can say, okay, ILRI is leading the chapter on knowledge hubs. So maybe they are generating a report, and that report becomes a chapter in the report, in the main report. Then we say, okay, maybe knowledge partnerships. Maybe Farah has been doing a lot of knowledge partnership. They are responsible for providing a chapter. So we give that clarification in a way that it already not just gives the detailed outline, but it also provides some kind of responsibilities, or we already can envisage which organizations have done a number of things that we can pick some content from them, including even the deliverables that have emerged from the KM for AgD over the years that can form chapters in that kind of report. So please, I just want us to reflect a bit more on this presentation, and we would come back to it again. Thank you. Oh, okay. I think it's okay. So yeah, somebody said farmers need to be able to access, share, and apply knowledge. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that presentation. I have two comments. The one is a very simple one. I think the regional dimension of knowledge hubs in Africa should maybe a little bit more be a little bit more pronounced. You very often emphasize the national one, but we have heard that very often the nations are very small. Agroecological zones stretch across various countries, and these countries are simply do not have the capacities to serve all the agroecological zones. So regional integration, and I mean, FARA and the regional organizations do already exactly that, but I think in such a strategy, it should be then also really be taken as maybe, I don't know, the core, but more emphasis than now. The second question that I have is, I observe that more and more knowledge is contested. There is no knowledge there which is, let's say, 100%, and we have seen it during the COVID pandemic more than ever. There are so many different interpretations of the reality, alternative facts, not even knowledge, facts. How do you want to deal with that? You have the private sector who has not only knowledge interests, but also, of course, commercial interests and wants to sell things. You have the debates between agroecology and intensification. So we have within the agricultural knowledge community, we have very disagreements about what is the right strategy and which kind of knowledge should be produced. We have the indigenous knowledge now, which comes out very often very strongly and which is not always in line with scientific knowledge. So how do you want in your knowledge strategies deal with these alternative knowledge worlds?
Thank you very much. Before Prof responds, can I take another hand so that you?
Thank you. Thank you, Prof, for that detailed presentation. Mine is just an addition. You spoke about not really concentrating so much on the indicators as we do the report. But I think that seeing that the AU right now, they are adding an indicator on knowledge management because if you've been following the Malabo reporting quite closely, you will note that one of the gaps that they identified was data and lack of data and knowledge. And therefore, they have even ensured that they have slotted in one indicator that responds to that. I would be of the view that keeping tracking that indicator under knowledge management, even as we do our report, is critical to make ourselves relevant and also connecting it to the agenda on knowledge management under the SDG. Because remember, that is also another indicator that we respond to. So I think we could just craft it in such a way that it is relevant to our field, but not go so much into the details of the number. Because whether we like it or not, indicators are critical for tracking impact. Thank you.
Over to you, Prof. There's another one. I'm not sure if Prof can take. Okay, maybe respond, Prof, and then she'll.
Thank you, Prof, for your excellent presentation. I was wondering, I don't know if you already thought about it. It's about, we spoke a lot about knowledge management, but what about the management of the data? Because all this knowledge that we are speaking about are going to generate a lot of data. How are we going to maybe think about how to manage this data? Because this is going to be a big data management. So I don't know if you already thought about it. So that's for me.
Thank you very much for all your questions. Let me start with Melika and the data. Actually, data, information, knowledge are very much linked, and there is no knowledge finally without data. And from the data, we want to gain knowledge. So that's why we have an understanding of knowledge hubs to also structure, organize, and gain value from data. So I think the knowledge hubs are an anchor point to organize, use, disseminate, and create value from the data. Of course, that also requires the competence how to make use of the data. So when we talk about educated knowledge managers, in a wider sense, we also need those who have the data science skills. But, you know, those data scientists, they also learn about knowledge graphs and taxonomies and how to use data. So knowledge science is a wider discipline and also is in a family with data science. So let's see this as an integrated topic. We cannot leave data management out of knowledge management. When it comes to indicators, actually I had already prepared more details with more indicators, but I could not put everything on the slides. But they are there and we will use them. And as you said, we should not overwhelm the people with too many indicators because, first of all, when there are too many, the attention will be distracted. And if they are not the right ones, not really useful, they can even lead you in the wrong direction. So I'm always very careful about the use of indicators, but I fully agree, we need strong and convincing and engaging numbers. Like, for instance, how many disabled people do not have access to knowledge and cannot avail the richness of knowledge for their agricultural productivity? How many? What does it cost us? Not can cost us economically, in economics, but even individually. How much pain does that cause to the people who cannot access knowledge? The dependence that they have, and so on. We have to put the fingers and provide numbers. So I agree. When it comes to the question of the continental and sub-regional knowledge hubs, I think maybe it did not come out very well, but we are very much focused on that. And what we even called the Akosombo integration agenda, I have not mentioned that here, but it's one of those key strategies that we have, says that the continental, sub-regional, and national knowledge hubs need to be as much as possible linked and integrated. And even the sub-regional and continental knowledge hubs will require the knowledge from the national level. So I see the problem that we have quite an advanced continental and quite advanced sub-regional knowledge hubs, some more, some a bit less for now, but the national level is quite underdeveloped. We have knowledge hubs, for instance, of agricultural research institutes, but they are institutional and not national knowledge hubs. So the knowledge in the countries is not very well integrated and available. And without the national integration, there will also be no sub-regional and no continental integration. So I think we have to work towards an integration of the whole sector from continental to national. And the question of the quality of information, we have addressed this already in 2021. We have developed a knowledge policy brief on quality information that includes, on the one side, fighting fake news or wrong information in social media and other channels. On the other side, applying standards at least in those institutions and their channels that are under control of the government or the NARIs or the players. And that requires standards of, let's say, providing information. Who is saying that? When has it been said? How has it been developed? Is it an opinion? Is it proven? So that the end user can trust it. When it comes to those sources that are not, let's say, quality assured, it is mainly in the responsibility of the citizens to make the judgment. Can I trust this person? Can I trust this institution? Can I trust this source? And I think also here, the governments can set up a number of activities. For instance, sensitizing the citizens of the potentially misleading information that is provided by either industry players who have their commercial interest or others, political movements, and so on and so on. So on the one side, the governmental people can at least apply standards for their own knowledge work, and on the other side, sensitize the people to make better judgments on what they read in all those channels that we cannot control. So yeah, there is a lot to do. It's a vast field in which we are, and we have to work together to assure that we achieve our goals of knowledge-based agriculture. Thank you for your questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Andreas, and thank you for the question. I think we need a knowledge break. Do we? Yeah, the fuel in the cars has gone down. So please, can we all stand? Can we all be on our feet? We are going to do a 5-minute exercise. It looks like, well, it's a lot. People are almost falling asleep. Okay, please, let's all be on our feet. Everybody, please be on your feet. Okay. We're going to okay. So you're going to remain standing until you're able to give me a word that ends in ISM. Words that end in ISM. And I'm going to choose randomly. Yes, ISM. Pour ceux qui parlent français, je suis désolée, mon français est fini. Mais je demande les mots qui se terminent avec ISM. I am going to choose, and you cannot repeat what another person has already said. Now that you say I should start with you, I'll start with some other person. We have to validate the words, no fake words.
Mechanism.
Mechanism.
Organism.
Feminism.
Feminism. It's interesting how feminism came from your table.
Journalism.
Journalism.
Plagiarism. Legalism. Legalism.
Legalism. Please, when you say you sit down, if your word is correct, please sit down.
Colonialism.
Nihilism.
Please, I don't know this word.
Nihilism.
Okay, we're going to let him sit down based on the fact that we'll check again later. Please, I'm seeing people with their phones. I don't want anybody with a phone. Google us. Please keep your phones down. Please drop your phones. I'll skip you. I saw you on your phone. I'm going to the back.
Racism.
Racism. Evangelism.
Optimism.
Optimism.
Bellism.
You stand up to the end of the session.
Auditism.
So it's a French word. We're assuming that it ends with ISM in English. Okay, let's go ahead. Okay, so I'll change. Let's go with OGY. What's that end in OGY to make it easier? OGY. Don't give us the time to. It's 1 second. You guys said you wanted only 1 minute.
Biology.
Biology.
Sociology.
Sociology. What's that end in OGY?
Strategy.
Hey!
Ecology.
Ecology.
Ethnobotany.
Should we let her stand for another 2 hours? Benjamin, you're sitting down. You didn't give us a word. Please stand up.
It's OGI. Geology.
Zoology.
Entomology.
Entomology. All these agriculture people. I want something outside of agriculture. Paleontology.
Pedology.
Ecology. We are sorry.
Yeah.
I can't hear you.
Melody.
No.
Agriculture.
Ecology. No melody. Ecology. Somebody said ecology. Somebody said biology already.
Pedagogy.
Theology. Theology.
What?
Theology.
Theology. Oh.
Pedagogy.
Oh, pedagogy. OGY. Benjamin, you're sitting down.
Archaeology.
Archaeology. That's 2 people.
Physiology.
Physiology. That's it.
Seismology.
Benjamin, you stand up. Oh. There are many more words. Think of another one.
Seismology.
I can't pronounce it, but yes, it's correct. Benjamin, last but not least, please give us an interesting word.
I say jumpology. As somebody said physiology. How about ecology? Hey, pathology.
Everybody is seated, right? Francis,
Hydrology.
please give us a word, pharology. Take up 2 people. Okay, thank you very much. I hope we're awake now. Our next presentation is by Peter Valentine. I should have used words with INE so that we do Valentine. Peter, I stalked you a little on LinkedIn, and he was very modest in his introduction. He was very modest. He has worked in organizations I can't even pronounce, and considering the fact that we were avoiding acronyms, there's a list of acronyms that we would have attributed to his track record. So Peter has a wealth of experience in strategic planning, partnership development, knowledge generation, and dissemination. So I think he's the best person to talk to us today on KM in Africa, the before, the now, and the way forward. Please, can we put our hands and feet and everything together for Peter as he walks up to the stage? In fact, Benjamin says we should stand up for Peter. I didn't say that. Benjamin said we should stand up for him. I'm coming to usher him. I'm coming to usher him to the high table, to the high floor.
So thank you so much. I'm going to stand here, everybody, because we are sharing the slides from the Zoom. Yeah, because it's easier than I don't have to ask, like the prof, I don't have to say next slide, next slide. Yeah, so you're happy. I encourage you to sit down. I encourage you to come towards the front because I have a lot of, I'm going to tell a bit of a story about KM and agriculture with an African flavor for several years. And I'm going to, the slides should come up, and some of the slides are screenshots and things. So you don't have to read everything, but sometimes it's nice if you want to. So if you're sitting towards the back, you may come towards the front. So I'm going to just stand from here. So you have to look that way. My slides have gone. Look that way, but listen to me. And if you're on a laptop, I'd love it if you weren't doing emails or something like that. It's always nice to listen to a speaker. Francophones, I'm going to use English. I will try to be a bit slow, but I'm not going to be able to interpret or anything like that. Is it okay? We're hearing fine? Both sides? Okay. So what am I going to talk about? Let me get rid of this Zoom thing. So the Zoom people should also see everything fine. Is that my slides that I'm sharing? Yeah? Looks like it. Okay. So the task I was given by Benjamin was talk about past, present, and future, in a sense, of knowledge management for agriculture in Africa. And what I'm going to do really is reflect a little bit on the things I've been doing in the last several years, slightly more than Andrea, but from a practitioner perspective. I have given training and things, but I'm not a professor or an academic. So this is very much what I've been doing hands-on. I've been doing knowledge management, communication, information management, other things that you mentioned. So it's very practical what I'm talking about. And it's really coming out of experience. So I want to start by, we've done the looking back. This is now moving. So you can see there's things there that are going to be quite difficult for you to read. So I wanted to go back. I've gone back 30 years ago, roughly. Most of the room were probably not born. Yeah, and in those days, what was on the agenda was very much about access. Everybody was worried about access to knowledge, access to information. Yeah, and there were lots of ways people did that. And classically, organizations, research organizations or NGOs would have a library of some kind. And some were very dynamic, some were not very dynamic. And they would buy things, they got books, and that was the primary vehicle. And, you know, universities perhaps still do that with students, but that was your primary source of knowledge. Yeah, we had databases. You could dial online and you could search for something, and you had to be very careful because it costs. Sometimes it would cost you money per minute to dial online. You would log into databases, so you had to be very careful what you were searching. There were different places. Research networks. Scientists were all part of research networks. Yeah, and there were lots in Southern Africa, here. USAID funded many of these crop improvement networks. And you would go to those meetings, you would work with people, you bring knowledge back with you, and you would share. Yeah, personal contacts, email, 1995, just coming. My first website was in 1995. It was really early. Did it all by hand, handcrafted HTML pages. It was absolute. I look back now, I'm like, what on earth were we doing? That was just coming. And then there were things like CDs. Does everybody in the room know what a CD is? Yeah, you had it for your music. We had CD-ROMs, and you could store things on them. And you can't quite see it there, but on the top here, the CGIR developed a project in 1990, which they called the Compact International Agricultural Research Library. And basically all the CGIR's knowledge was put onto kind of a shelf load of CD-ROMs. And these were shipped to places, yeah? But that was the access thing. There was also microfiche. You probably can't see so well there, but microfiche, have anybody seen a microfiche? Yeah, some people do. There's little on the picture, they're little blue things. They're like little photographs of pages. So there's a scanning process, but it takes a photograph, yeah? And you could then have a special reader and read it. This was a project that Ilka did a very long time ago. They traveled all over Africa. They collected documents and they photographed them and made microfiche out of them. And then those microfiches were made available around. So it was all about access, access, yeah? And it was mainly research and academics. That's who we were worrying about. Of course, farmers were there, but that was extension's job, you know? And there was radio and there was media. That was around 30 years ago. So just to give you an example, I worked in those days at a place called ISNAR, which was the International Service for National Agricultural Research. It was a CGIR center. It merged with IFPRI. Later, it was all about capacity development. And we had a workshop in 1993 about information management needs of NARS. Nobody talked about knowledge. It was information, management information, scientific information, data. And you maybe can't quite see that information technologies, especially CD-ROM, was somehow on the agenda. So it was all still around access, accessing knowledge, finding out what scientists need, getting that knowledge. We moved on. Most of you will have heard of CTA. It's an organization that closed down about 4 years ago, but for about 40 years, 50 years, it really worked with ACP countries and across Africa. And if you look at what they did, their job was to improve the availability and access of relevant, adequate, accurate information. Still all about access, yeah? It was this idea that all those African agriculturalists, scientists, didn't have enough knowledge. How can we provide access? And CTA did many, many things. They brought in ICTs, they worked with drones. Somebody mentioned this morning about drones. They did a huge number of things over the years. But in the early years, it was all about providing access. And they would give you CD-ROMs. They would give you subscriptions to journals. They would give you donations of books for your library. Yeah. Where are we now? 20 years ago, roughly. This is now around 2005. Why did I put 2005 there? Probably the internet, the web was really beginning to spread. The website began to come. Web 2 was there. Nowadays, we talk about social media, but in those days, everybody was thinking about Web 2. People were worried about bandwidth. Universities were getting together to negotiate good rates for bandwidth. I don't know whether the NARS were always involved, but you know, in Kenya, you have the Kenya Academic Network, and Ghana has the Ghana Network. They were all busy getting bandwidth. They were also buying discounted access to journals, you know, and then you had projects like Agora and Hinari, which FAO, WHO supported, which brought knowledge, gave you knowledge in your library. So very much, it was all still about access, but we still had people beginning to build things, websites, portals, gateways, virtual libraries. And again, it's still around access. Let's build knowledge resources for other people to use. We began to realize that digitalization of our content was critical because on our websites, when a few years after I left ISNAR had closed down, and we were at one point, we were looking for the document, the digital documents. And all the early stuff, there's no digital versions left of any of it. They didn't keep it, they didn't archive them. Nowadays, it's obvious, you get a file, you do something with it. In those days, they made all the publications, they put them on a laptop, but at some point they were deleted, removed, nothing was archived. So things had to be scanned. Google Books did a very big initiative with CGIR and probably others to digitize all of our old content. And all the CGIAR centers shipped boxes and boxes of books to somewhere in the Philippines, and then Google digitized it all. And if you go to Google Books, you will find huge amounts of old knowledge. Yeah, we had people discover, people were on email. We had discussion groups, e-groups, communities of practice. Some guys at Shell began to write up this whole approach to communities of practice, and everybody got excited, including our world. People talked ICT for Ag, ICT for Dev, KM for Dev, FOS at FOSS. Anybody know what it means? Free and open source software. It was a big thing in Africa because nobody wanted to be in all this Microsoft business. Everybody wanted to have access to the free and open source and have our developers here in Africa doing those things. People talked for producers, phones were there, the first mile. Some people called it the last mile, but at a certain point, I think it was IFAD said, it's not the last mile, it's the first mile of connectivity, yeah? We heard about telecenters, farm radio, e-extension, these things were all e-agriculture. This was all the big thing 20 years ago. So what does it look like? On the top left, you see D groups. 2002, we created the first D groups. I worked for IICD in those days. It was a kind of an ICT for Dev place. We created the first D groups. On the right, you see TEAL, the essential agricultural library. And this was another CD-ROM project. Cornell University managed it, and countries would be given hundreds of journal subscriptions on CD-ROMs. Web2 for Dev, this was a big conference at FAO. We said, okay, hey, social web participation, let's get into social media. And we had a big conference at FAO with everybody getting excited. And then at the same time, you had people like IDRC in those days really into connectivity. And what you're seeing here is a screenshot of the Acacia initiative, which is bringing connectivity to different countries. Big issues, that was the big issues in those days. Agris, FAO, a big player in all of this. In those days, the story that you read was all about, and I went to the Wayback Machine. If you want to find old web pages, you can go back to the Wayback Machine, the web archive, and you can pull up. So this is what they had around that time. It's all about sharing, providing access. That's what it was about. So you can see in all of this, we don't have knowledge yet. Huh? It's all about information. We don't even have data, whoever was talking about data. It's really basically about information and some data, not much. And then from 2005 onwards, as the web became kind of very widespread, we all got into open access, open knowledge, open science, open research, open collaboration, open, open, open. This became the big thing. It was interpreted by many of us to build repositories. Repositories being proper databases that contain proper content, well described, permanently accessible, in formats that people could get hold of, not just PDFs on a website. When I went to ILRI in 2009, the website was full of PDFs. And every time somebody reorganized the website, PDFs disappeared. It was called link rot in those days. So that you'd have a click and it would give you the 404 error message. So we said, knowledge managers shouldn't be having 404 error messages. Maybe I can see you're looking a bit confused. 404 is when you open a web page and it doesn't exist. Yeah? A button pops up, 404 error. There were projects in the CGIAR, AAA, I'll talk about in a moment. CR, FARA, Rails had a big project. Regional Agricultural Information and Learning System, Benjamin, was it? Yeah? People like GFAR, they had regional agricultural information systems. They had a global rice, Africa rice, Asia rice, all bringing information and knowledge across Africa. At the same time, you also got this very much focus on this interaction, social learning, learning alliances, learning labs. These things are all still around. Communities of practice, big innovation platforms. I met Wole, I think, from Afara this morning. He was the innovation platform guy for a while. He was at IITA, and he was over there at Afara, IITA, no? Yeah. Innovation platforms, big thing to engage multiple actors. Digital ag, D for ag. That's what CTA was. That's where it is. MAG, M farmer, and then all the apps. And of course, even KM for ag, D came a lot later. So 15 years ago, I joined ILRI. I'm just going to show you a few things. So this was whenever I made a presentation then, and I have forgotten to do it recently. This is the slide I showed. There was a knowledge share fair at FAO. in early 2009, and every participant was asked to pin a leaf on a tree. And somebody, this is not somebody else pinned this. And I love it because everybody always says knowledge is power. But knowledge on its own isn't power. It's the sharing is the power. For me, this has kind of been the leitmotif of everything I've done. If it's not shared, why are we doing it? Yeah, if it's knowledge management. So I often talked about knowledge sharing. So when I joined ILRI, these are some of the things I've been reflecting on, working on. Some of them. I'm not going to go through all of these, but just so you see, there was a big thing around knowledge was very much scattered at an organizational level, also across different organizations. Organizations there was all this research going on, there was all this extension going on, teaching, but where was the knowledge? Where was the information? How do we really embed? Blending things together. We often thought people share and collaborate. They don't. It's not like there's no gravity. There has to be an incentive. People don't just do it. You have to make it happen. Yeah. The tools need to be facilitated. Everybody can create a website. Everybody can create a D group. Everybody can create a Yammer group or something. It doesn't mean it works. Yeah. People build, how many portals have we seen that are empty? How many people build community sites? Nothing going on in them at all. The opening events and engagement was really critical. When I went to ILRI, I think most of the time, most of the scientists were in meetings, workshopping, engaging with partners, disseminating results, validating results, preparing proposals, developing, I mean, so many things. And they were bad meetings, full of PowerPoints, full of, no breaks, long sessions, PowerPoints, no questions, listening. It's like death by PowerPoint. And so we said at ILRI, at least, no, we're going to do meetings differently. And so 3 big things were on my mind those days: innovation systems, this openness, and social media. And you know, if I was to do that nowadays, social media probably wouldn't. It's become such, nowadays, social media, most people you talk to, they say, my wife's a teacher, and she says, social media, don't talk to me about it. It's destructive. All the kids in the class are bullied, and it's terrible. They should never have invented social media. That's my teacher wife, yeah? But of course, and maybe parents will feel the same, I don't know. For us, social media was this super, super wonderful thing. So for me, what was really big in those days, there was a lot of people looking at innovation systems, innovation networks, this notion that there's many actors in knowledge systems. And the secret of it is the interaction between them is the value add. If you can facilitate the interaction, you can really have an impact potentially. And that was quite nice. This was the last thing was, this is an American anthropologist / poet. And I don't know why anyway, he said to be properly knowledgeable, the centers and the peripheries need to be in conversation with each other. And this, I think, is really important. That's why we're having these conversations. So that multiple knowledges. And so what we saw before was formal organizations producing the knowledge, managing the knowledge, setting the agenda. And now we began to realize farmers have knowledge. Value chain actors have knowledge. Policymakers have knowledge. It's this interaction, yes? All this multiple knowledge needs to come in, and we need different roles, brokering and all those things. Second thing, and I'm moving quite quickly because I have quite a lot of slides, public goods, openness. Research organizations, most of the time, are funded with public money. And so the argument was that if those goods are to be, if they are good, and if they are public, they have to be open, yeah? Which meant open access. We need them to be, a private company can lock its knowledge up. If you're a government or a research organization, that's not allowed, should not be allowed. So we had a whole interaction, working together, a little bit what you were talking, Andreas, earlier. We had a kind of a movement. How can we make things open? How can we make things public? How do we change the behavior of researchers and funders, yeah? And what we did, I did a lot of work in about 2007 to 2008 or so with the CGIAR, basically looking at the outputs of the CGIAR to say, are they open? And we came up with this framework, which we called the AAA, available, accessible, applicable. And what we found was that many or most of the CGIAR's outputs, and they were so proud of these outputs, were not accessible. Yeah, they weren't even captured. They were in people's laptops. No, they were never shared. They were locked up. They were copyrighted. They can't travel. And we had this notion about traveling. Knowledge needs to travel. Knowledge needs to be a public good. It needs to cross boundaries. It needs to cross borders, yeah? Cross organizational borders, country borders, linguistic borders. But if you don't set the knowledge up properly, it can't happen. So this knowledge traveling was really important around those days, yeah? And you could argue community knowledge, indigenous knowledge is the same. Most of us can't access it, yeah? And so they could argue it's a bit different. We focus very much on our knowledge. So what we said was that knowledge is not born public. You have to make it public. It's not born open. You have to make it open. We had to make it digital. People would send you documents. And I don't want the document. Give me the digital file that I can then make sure is made open and accessible. But it meant having Creative Commons licenses. It meant using social tools. It meant having open mindsets. So this is what we were working on. And then the Web 2 that came then. We were so excited. We loved this thing. Anyone can be an author. We could all be publishers. And we had this idea that all scientists began to blog. Scientists began to make podcasts. Scientists began on video, on YouTube. And we thought, this is great. We don't have any more of this kind of, closely managed. Everything has to go through publication things and the whole peer review. We get the knowledge out. Some people loved it. Some people didn't. We could remix it up, huh? Everybody could run a website. I mean, nowadays, this is simple. You guys you young ones create websites probably all the time and publish all the time. You make videos, you do things on TikTok. That's all communication. Nobody did that. Certainly not in science a few years ago. And then anybody could become a communicator, yeah? So those were kind of the notions. So instead of having an organization where you have a few people who were information or knowledge or communicators, the whole organization potentially could share and publish knowledge. So this was a really important quote for me in those days. There was this person called Charlie Ledbetter, no idea who he was, but he said, that the web invites us to look at the future. It's what we share is as important as what we own. So he says in the internet, yeah, in the economy of things, what you own, your land, your cattle maybe in Africa, your house, that was the thing that kind of set you apart. But what he said is when you have this economy of ideas, what you share is important. So that goes back to my leaf earlier. So when I went to ILRI, these were the big things that I pitched to ILRI and said, this is what we're going to try to do. We're going to go for this open, inclusive interactions among actors. Yeah, we're going to be working together with lots of other people. We're going to go open and we're going to use social media. So how did we do? I'm going to zoom through. Going open, this is the 3 A's. In December 2008, we called these things availability, accessibility, applicability. And what we said, availability means I know this exists, but I can't get it. Accessibility is I can download it and take it away and reuse it, yeah? Applicability is that somehow I benefit from it. That was the most difficult one. But we really said, let's all commit, and we worked together on this. And this is a PowerPoint from the CGIAR in those days. And she basically said, these are the ways, and you probably can't read that. You can make website, you can make your knowledge visible. You can use Web 2, you can have a repository, you can have open access policies, you make your content digital, you use video, communicate, so you change the way we communicate and share research. That's what we called the pathways. And then we had this thing, and this is relevant for the previous presentation. We created a thing called CIARD, which had a whole bunch of organizations involved, including FARA and others. And we really wanted to build a knowledge commons, which said, basically, we had a vision and a manifesto. Public domain knowledge should be truly accessible to all, yeah? And we said how to do it. And it was endorsed by FARA General Assembly in July 2010. So that was a partner in all of this. That was CIARD. And what did it say we should do? And the idea was that there was a checklist. And each of our organizations could say, I believe in open. I want to be open. I want to be visible. And here's how I do it. And you recognize, yeah? So you make things digital, you share metadata, you develop policy, you make things open access, you give them open licenses. This is all part of knowledge management, focusing on the content, making the content travel, making it AAA. So what do we do? An example, CG Space, you've heard about it. This is probably, this currently is probably the biggest manifestation of that repositories piece. CGIAR, most of us got together and said, let's build together an open access repository. But it wasn't just us. Of course, on the top, AJOL, African Journals Online. This was the place. They said African knowledge isn't open. African knowledge isn't accessible. So let's build a place where you can publish. And so many of you, the scientists, might have published on AJOL journals. Organizations began to create their own repositories. On the top, you see KaiNet and Kari. This is Kenya in 2012. And they built it on a kind of a system that was unsustainable. And now they use DSpace, and you have the Calro e-repository. So it evolves. CADIP XP4 is beginning to set up a DSpace. So this is the same movement, yeah? So we're seeing the same. You'll also see, if you go to UNEP, you will see a DSpace repository. FAO just recently created a DSpace repository. Everybody is creating proper repositories because when they're properly done, you can really do great things with them. And the key is metadata. Good, standard, quality metadata, which allows you to share. Yeah? And I'll give an example of that. And fabulously, talking to Sahai this morning, she said, oh, but you know, we had a report from our KM for Champions thing in 2002. And guess what? It's all about making our knowledge travel. And this was the story that went out on the website. Yeah. So the same notions, this notion is still here. Things we talked about then. Events. At ILRI, we made a huge effort here. We organized training for people. We tried to get facilitators. So Pamela is one. Sahai is one. Ebenet didn't make it yet. She runs CG Space. She does the curation. These guys do the process stuff and properly document them, produce blog posts, make videos, do the social media around the events. Social media, of course, in the beginning, ILRI, I don't think we had any social media when I went there. Maybe, I don't think so. And now you can see at the bottom, if you can read the logos, Facebook, Twitter, I'm seeing Instagram, TikTok, it's all there now. Everybody has all of those. And if I go, I just, for the fun of it, went on to Google Images to say what's happening, and typed in the hashtag KM for Ag, and you can see social media, KM for Ag, you guys, the champions, are social is really important. Yeah. So keep on going. How much time I have? Do I have 5 more minutes or so? 15 more minutes. Okay, I'll keep on going. Then we talked participation, this thing about the innovation systems working together. Yeah. So innovation platforms. This was the big thing. Why were they important? Because they include different voices, different knowledge, facilitates learning. Yeah. This was one of the ways, and we ran a write shop in, I don't know when, to create a series of innovation platform briefs. Well, they came to that. Participatory video. This is all about going closer to the ground, closer to the farmers, closer to our other actors. We use multimedia to tell stories. We did participatory video. We worked with radio, with farm radio. So these are all examples. And I don't, you know, are they knowledge management? In the sense of bringing different knowledges together, finding new ways to communicate, putting our knowledge into use? I think it is. Knowledge centers. You love the knowledge hubs. In Ethiopia, there was a project, and they created in each warada, like a kind of a county, a knowledge center. So I'm getting there. I see that this for me was a really important document. This is the Harvard Business Review story, article, review in around 1999. And they asked the question, this is for business people, of course. What is your strategy for managing knowledge? And they came up with 2, basically, what they called codification, which I'm calling now curating. And the other one was for personalization. Codification is about the explicit knowledge, throwing everything into databases so you can find it. Personalization is about working with people's knowledge, tacit knowledge, and really tapping into all of that. At ILRI, this has changed since I left, but this was our kind of big outcomes. And you can see the first one was about getting knowledge into you. The third one is about a curation piece, managing the knowledge. And the fourth one was all about linking and connecting people. So that's how we interpreted it. Curation, let me go quick. Everybody loves repositories nowadays. People tend to think of repositories as places where you find things. For us, it's where you publish things. It's where you permanently archive them. You give them an identity. You give them an ID, permanent ID that won't break. There won't be any link rot. You can reuse the content if your repository is robust. Now we're being asked more and more reporting. Who was talking indicators? Tell us, we want to use the repository to give indications of the performance of science. And people are also saying, hey, can we use it kind of sense make to understand what our science is doing? So CG Space again, you can search for stuff. Yeah, fine, you can search. Sorry, this is a bit of a delay. You can search for stuff, you can't read it. It shows you for Rwanda, we have 1,050 outputs, all about Rwanda. You can break it down, when were they published, who published them, blah, blah, blah. The Alliance of Biodiversity, they take the data straight from the repository onto their website, and their website has a page about every one of their publications, and that uses the API from DSpace. IFRI, they've recently joined CG Space. They were using a different system before. They couldn't do some of these things. They're now using CG Space. Same thing. All their publications are now on CG Space, and they can now populate their website. The whole website is recently redesigned about a month ago using WordPress, and they embed directly from the repository. All of the content comes. Throwing this one up, this is a big new research program. I don't know, is it 100 million pounds funded by DFID, FCDO, and IDRC? And I've been involved on the side with a project to build a knowledge management platform. They have a website, and on the top there, which contains a library. That library takes the data from the IDRC DSpace. It's the first time IDRC have a very nice DSpace. They just don't do anything with it. So we said to them, hey, we can use that content on this website. And they were like, wow, can we? Yeah. So this Claire website is now running. So when the people report their outputs, they report into the repository and they appear on the website. Yeah, that's the Claire program. Reporting. CGIAR has a very, very complicated and sophisticated results dashboard. I'm sorry, you really can't read it. But anyway, it includes all the knowledge out products, and it tells you what they are. It tells you whether they're open access, whether they're accessible. It tells you what type of things there are, and all of it comes from CG Space. Everything goes into CG Space, and then up it goes to the website, and the donors get their reports. So we have on our repository all these initiatives, and you can also visualize the outputs, and you can see them, and you can download reports. And last thing, the CGIAR has recently got a climate change impact platform. And the new leader said, what science have we done on climate in the last few years? So she went to CG Space and she pulled out, did some analysis, and she's discovered, that, okay, so there's 3 primary categories of outputs. One is around methodologies, one is around solutions, and one is around understanding the impacts. And she kind of come up with a whole kind of mapping of this climate knowledge of the CGIAR using the repository. Yeah. So you have that reporting, but also people saying, what have we done? Where are we going? And they can use this repository to do that. So just to remind, this curation piece is sometimes seen as the most dull and boring, and it needs people who are very detail-oriented, but it's absolutely critical because it helps us organize the knowledge. We can find it, but it can travel. We can reuse it, and people are asking us, reporting and sensing. The other side, I'll be quick, connecting. Yeah, communities of practice, collaborating online. When we spoke to IDRC at FCDO about this Claire, they said, we want to collaborate. When we dived in detail, did all the user needs, actually, you can't collaborate unless you interact. So you have to have an interaction space. And you can't really expect people to collaborate on a web platform very easily if they're all over the place. So we said, okay, so this is the work I've been doing with the D Group's Foundation, which is supporting some of these things. And why do people come online? And here's some examples of why people collaborate online. They're building projects together, they're building products together, they're just sharing information, a lot of different things. So great example. This is the Digital Agri Hub. It's an ex-FAO CTA project, and they run a very active community with thousands of users, and they have regular conversations. But what's really unique is they do information sharing, but they also have guided conversations, e-conversations, where they say, here's a topic that's quite pretty important, AI, and ICT, and they do a conversation. Critical areas came out of all of this. We ran a kind of an online consultation about what is effective. So here you can see it's not just about having the platform. You got to make sure there's participation. You got to pay attention to facilitation and the platforms. Okay, there's Claire again. What's really interesting, when they came, they said we want to have a KM platform that supports knowledge sharing, that supports collaboration, that supports conversations and interactions, and we can use it for reporting. So what you basically have is a website where you see, you can't read that, where it has an events calendar, it has groups, communities of practice, it has people, a directory of the people in the program, it has outputs, and it has other conversations. What's really important is this integration now. So where people said, I have a repository over here, and some people say, I have a collaboration space over here, you can integrate this together. So you have a WordPress front end for techie people. DSpace is the reporting and the outputs. The groups.io is the conversation space. There's Mel, and they call it a KM platform. I think we're going to see a lot more of these types of things. So looking ahead, guys, last part, I found a couple of articles, really interesting articles. This one is a systematic literature review of knowledge management in agriculture. They didn't find very many articles, but what's interesting about it is maybe not so much the findings. They said, there's most KM research doesn't pay proper attention to the diversity of knowledge, the indigenous knowledge, the interactions. It's all focused on technology and platforms, technology transfer, yeah? And the second one is another one. This came from CIMIT, another CGIAR center, talking about knowledge hubs. It is a knowledge management for innovation framework. And they have a very interesting mapping of different types of knowledge and strategies that we use. So I'm going to wrap up now. I've got a few slides here. Looking forward, what are the things, and I'm using the word beyond. So we started this with knowledge management for agriculture development, KM. So I said, what are the things? So I'm just thinking ahead, what's coming? This is the way ahead piece, beyond knowledge. And we talked about it. Somebody raised the question, data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. This is the classic pyramid that everybody knows about. However, if you look at the business side, they talk a lot about insights and intelligence and foresight. The people are expecting us to also, it's not just about organizing the knowledge, it's doing something else. Beyond agriculture, and I've been working a little bit with Pamela recently on a One Health program, and we had a really fascinating workshop in Zimbabwe in February, I think, looking at environment, One Health and the environment. And what was striking was that we had people coming, it was all about the environment, right? And then we had environmental health people who were saying the environment is a threat to people. And then we had the biodiversity people saying people are a threat to the environment. And these people were completely different worlds in the same place. And this is the first time we really tried to dig deeper into, and we ended up, in theory, this is an agricultural, anyway, beyond agriculture, One Health. You can see it's about the healthy planet's ecosystems. Beyond management. I loved, when I was at ILRI, we always talked about knowledge sharing. Management, some people say you can't manage knowledge because so much is in people's heads. So you can share, you can translate, you can mobilize, you can broker. So all of those things are actually wrapped up with all of this. And some people will say, I'm a manager, I don't do brokerage. Yeah, for example, and brokers will say, I don't manage, I just facilitate and enable. Think about it. What management is what we call it, but there's a lot more to it. Beyond interaction, all this community collaboration stuff, we do a lot of interacting. And this is an article, a chapter written by somebody called Jürgen Hagmann, who's a very well-known facilitator. He's been working across Africa for many, many years. And basically, he says that, the problem is you've got to go beyond facilitation. You've got to go beyond and turn it into learning, turn it into collaboration. So if you don't just have a nice meeting, enjoy it thoroughly, and at the end of it say, hey, we're great, it turns into a product. And beyond publishing, we at ILRI, we always said, our repository is to publish. And that was the workflow we told. So we forced scientists, you can't put the document on the website. It has to be in the repository. Compulsory. If it's on the website, we remove it. So we forced people, we changed it to publish. But this is, I have to lean down because the writing is small. This is now the current Agris website. And what it says is, AGRIS, which is basically a massive index, is a great opportunity to increase analysis of agricultural performance and help inform agriculture investment, innovation, and policy. So they don't say, hey, AGRIS, we're the place to find knowledge. No, they say it's the place to guide other things. And I think this is my last one, beyond people. And everyone's been talking about artificial intelligence. And I understand one of the projects here is about artificial intelligence. But what I find was interesting here was I just did some Googling, you know, as we all do. And what was interesting for me was that the yellow here, when AI is trained on accurate, up-to-date, and well-organized information, that's what we do, we curate, it will be accurate, relevant, and precise. Yeah. So that's really important because, you know, if AI is pointed to the wrong stuff, we may get wrong answers. And then the second thing was really just talk about, you know, the things that it does. It can automate routine tasks, uncover hidden patterns, provide personalized recommendations. It can do a lot of things, but it needs a good knowledge base. So I'm really positive. I haven't played at all with AI. I know people who have, and they love it. And they design Lamborghini tractors with AI, and they play around with that sort of stuff. But anyway, I think it looks really positive. So that's my last slide. I'll leave you with this one. Knowledge is not the power, it's the sharing. So it is maybe not the management, because you manage without necessarily sharing. Huh? So it's what you do with the management. So I'm going to end there. I don't know how many minutes I took, but I hope it was interesting. A lot of old stuff, and you need some old head, you know. In Africa, sometimes elders get a lot of respect. So I feel like an elder in here. So I hope you enjoyed what you heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Peter. Knowledge sharing indeed is power. Just to be sure that we're paying attention, he made mention of 3 A's. What were the 3 A's he talked about? I can't hear. Accessibility, availability, and adaptability. Okay. Oh, he's saying adaptability. Applicability. Before or after applicability? Okay, thank you very much. It was a beautiful presentation. I'm very sure that some of us would have questions, or we can't let him go like that. I know that there are questions from some people. So the floor is open now. We have 5 minutes for questions, for any clarification. Okay. I start with Monsieur Ruben. Ça fait du plaisir.
Merci pour la présentation. En fait, j'ai cru entendre une question qui a été posée dans ce sens. Je veux savoir quelle est la différence entre la gestion des connaissances, la gestion de l'information ou bien la communication, parce que je retrouve un peu les outils de communication un peu partout là, les sites internet, que ce soit le journal. Oui, donc je veux savoir donc à quel niveau est-ce que se situe la démarcation entre ces différents concepts. Merci.
Okay, thank you very much. Ruben wants to know the difference between knowledge management, communication management, and data management. He said there's a little confusion because the tools that are used for the different processes are similar. So he wants to know where they differ.
There's a continuum from data, information, knowledge, wisdom, whatever we call it. At ILRI, when I went to ILRI, we had a communication team and a knowledge management team. After about a year, we put them together because we found that actually the communication people we were using the same workflows. So we blend the team together. So I think it's, of course, some things are very much communication, PR, you produce a press release or whatever it might be. And some things are very much knowledge management. You're, I don't know, updating a record in a repository, but it all flows together. And one of the things is your vision or your strategy has to be bringing that all together. I'm not sure if that answers the question. It's very, yeah, I mean, like I said, some people say you can't manage knowledge, but you can manage information and you can manage data. Yeah, I don't know if that helps.
Yeah.
I would have loved to translate, but I finished my French in the previous session. Is there anybody who wants to help? Thank you.
No, I'm not helping to translate.
Okay.
I have the next.
It's good that you say some people say you cannot manage knowledge, but there are also some people who say you can manage knowledge. And it's me who says that. Because management comes from a Latin term and it means more or less keeping your house in order. And actually, when we say knowledge is important and we want to keep our house in order, this is knowledge management. And if we say, in our house, knowledge sharing is specifically important, okay, we give it as much attention as we want. This is then also part of knowledge management. We keep our house in order. But if I say, I'm fully responsible for my house, it's not only sharing, it's also capturing. It's maybe also creating. So that's why, personally, I like the term knowledge management, because it is more holistic than only sharing, which is one of the many different processes that we address. So some people say you cannot manage. I would promote the term knowledge management, because actually if we only focus or use those sharp terms like data management, knowledge sharing, this and that, we are lacking our integrated responsibility for the applicability of knowledge. The criticism of management comes ever since, for I don't know how many times. But management is more than only a bureaucratic, heartless approach of categorizing and counting. It is coming from heart, of being responsible for something and keeping the house in order. That's how I personally see it.
I don't want to get into definitions, but at ILRI, when you speak to a scientist, knowledge management doesn't resonate. Knowledge sharing does, because they all have a purpose and they want to share. So horses for courses, as we say, I don't have any.
Okay. Thank you very much, Peter. Very amazing presentation, especially for someone like me who works with IRI. It's good to know where some of these things came from. My question is, we are a new crop of knowledge managers. What would be your maybe 2, 3 points, maybe like things we need to look out for, challenges we need to be mindful of, or pitfalls based on your experience over the years? What is it that we need to look out for as new players in this field?
Thank you very much. Very important question. Please, can we take the last two so he can respond to all of them at once?
Perfect. Yeah, thank you very much. We have observed over the years a disconnect, and I don't know how this meeting is going to help in this crisis. A disconnect between the knowledge we generate in the research centers and the universities and the knowledge farmers, for example, need. Many times when we are generating research projects, we are responding to a research grant call, and we are answering, or we are responding to the requirement of someone giving us the money. But almost doesn't happen that we go down, speak to the farmer who is working the soil, the fields, understand their problems, their challenges, sit with them, hold meetings with them, ask them which knowledge do you want, and then we gather that and take it, kind of turning the things around. Currently, it's top down. So can we design a model where we will twist it to be bottom up, so that the many publications, the PhDs, the articles, the theses we write and research reports we write will start to be relevant and meaningful to the farmers? But currently, there's a huge disconnect, looking from the point of an academia, but also as an agriculture extension worker.
Okay. I want to appreciate Peter for that presentation. It's really packed full. You have to rush over it, and I'm sure we have missed a lot of things. We'll go back to the slides. Hopefully that we will be able to understand some of those things. One of the things that I want to point out is the issue of knowledge sharing. Okay, we said knowledge sharing is power, not just having the knowledge. Now, one of the barriers to knowledge sharing is this issue around open access. Now, BMG, that's the Bill and Melinda Gates, one of the solutions they proposed then, which has been withdrawn, is that when you are publishing or you have a project under BMG, BMG will provide the cost of publishing. Now that has been withdrawn, okay? And the solution now is that you deposit your pre-pub in a pre-publication database, which ordinarily is not acceptable fully until the publication is published, you know, in a journal, in a publication. Now, the question is, how do you think that issue is going to be solved? Because if you say, let's open all publications, they are public goods, which is one of the things you mentioned. The publisher says, we have our own input and we have to be paid for what we've done or what we are doing to be able to pay our staffs and manage systems. So that means the public goods and the publisher has to be taken care of. So what is the solution? Because that is hindering sharing of knowledge.
So, farmer, I mean, I think there's plenty examples of bottom-up, farmer-first type research, priority setting, and knowledge, all those things. There's plenty around. Plenty around, except it's very costly, it's expensive, it's very high transaction costs. So, I mean, every CG center that I know does this participatory engagement. Everyone does it to some extent, but it's very high cost, transaction cost especially. And yeah, I think it's just people are, the traditional way of doing it is easier than the non-traditional ways. So I think we have to push and shove, but make the bet, but pitch why do we need to do that? What's the added value? Yeah, and it's not necessarily a knowledge value. It might be a research. It's an outcome, an impact added value. We've got to show the link between we engage farmers properly, we do research differently, we communicate differently, and the farmers get better livelihoods. Something like that. But it's a very difficult story to tell. Theory of change. Coming to you, the open access. The answer. If I had the answer, I'd be famous. Gates have been very smart. They used to pay for our articles to be made open access. They don't pay. They have created preprint repository. They get all our knowledge for free. Well, they paid for it, you could argue, but they now have, they're building up one of the biggest agricultural knowledge repositories around, and they're going to be very well positioned when it comes to AI and all of those things. Smart move from them. They get all of our knowledge because they in the old model, they also wanted us to deposit knowledge into their repository. Most of us didn't. And I think they now are forcing us to put our knowledge into their repository. Smart move. I don't know what we do about it. Paying the open access costs. I mean, everyone's always said, if you speak to most of the donors, they will say to you, budget it in your project, and if you budget it, we'll pay it. But many of the scientists then say, yeah, but if I put 5, 10, 20,000 there, I have 20,000 less for my science. And they prefer to spend it on science and a research assistant than to pay on open access. So it's a constant battle, even though we have mandates. So I don't know, there's no answer, but I think Gates made a smart move. All our knowledge will be in their repository, not ours, theirs. Pamela, the tips, I mean, I think there's a couple. For me, it's like you have to get, for me, it's like a lot of people in this information management are always worried about how do we get people to, how do we get the budget? People don't believe in us. We're undervalued, under-recognized. You have to work with your colleagues, whoever they are, scientists or researchers or whoever it is, extensionists. They have to believe in you and work with you, and you have to sell them what they want. So I think the story about knowledge sharing and management, most ILRI people, they don't want to be, the word management for a scientist isn't a popular word. Sharing, brokering, engaging, those things they love, even if you do knowledge management. Yeah. So getting the colleagues buy-in and then getting the the value proposition is really clear. I mean, at ILRI, there was even one of the critical success factors was about getting the knowledge into the right places. The organizations, you have to get top buy-in, I think, at a certain point. Those things, I don't know how it's different in every place. And I think telling the story, like for us, the repository, when we created it, everybody was saying the word repository, it's like being certified. In Britain, being certified means you're mad. But anyway, that's maybe knowledge management and madness is something similar. But anyway, you can also get other certification as well. But certified is anyway. So getting the repository, people saw it as a storehouse, and we told them no, it's a publishing. The communication people needed to agree, but it's where we publish. So you have to sell in different ways. That's how I found out anyway. So I don't know, you've got to have top management. You've got to have the colleagues really wanting you and buying you and buying you. And we need people when there's a workshop, the Deputy Director General says, Sahai, you're going to do it. She doesn't need to be asked. She just says, Sahai needs it. Yeah. And then, yeah, you got to sell it. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you very much. We would really like to continue, but we are running out of time. So do we want democracy? Do we want to continue with this? Or we have another session, the presentation of the groups, and it's supposed to be 15 minutes per group, 10 minutes and 5 minutes for discussion. So do we want to take a 2 minutes break and come back later, or we would just like to continue? Hmm. Okay. The program for tomorrow is also a little very charged because we have over 10 presentations tomorrow, individual presentations. So I think it's something we can talk about together. I don't have the audacity to take that decision. I'll hand over to the organizers. They can best tell us what to do.
Yes. So I think we can. The cocktail is 6. The conference cocktail. They said 6, but tomorrow too is packed. So if we shift these ones to tomorrow, the same people presenting will be presenting again today, and maybe that may be another. So if you would permit us, maybe we can have like 10 minutes break. Then we go and grab water and maybe have a quick social interaction. Then we come back and probably we give like 10 minutes for individual presentations, because actually there are 4. Yes, but these are presentations that they can maximum 10 minutes. Yeah, 10 minutes. Yeah. So 4. Yeah. A little bit. Yeah. So that means we'll come back at, okay, so we'll start the first presentation at 5:40. It's 5:32 now. Yeah. 5:40. Maybe less than 10 minutes. Let's try to summarize. God is a presentation that has. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So let the 10 minutes is fine. So we still. Yeah. I think the cocktail, we will talk to Dinah, will help us. Maybe Dinah will alert them that we will be a bit late. Yeah. But that will also mean, because tomorrow we are ending at 5, it will drag us up to, for me, tomorrow looks very packed. Anything carried to tomorrow would affect. Yeah. Yes. So Dinah will help us so that we don't the cocktail will still enjoy it, but maybe join a little bit late. Yeah. Thank you for your understanding. I don't know whether it's democracy or autocracy, but
Can I check if all the presenters are ready and their presentations has been sent to Benjamin?
yes, get water. So the first presenters will be the first presenters at the cafe, Indigenous knowledge. So your presentation will be ready online. Yeah. Please grab some water from the back. Today's second coffee is the cocktail.
That's 2 minutes. I'm good, yourself. Yeah. Last 2 minutes.
This meeting is being recorded.
Yeah, let's bring them back. There's no need for. Welcome back, colleagues, to our last session. May I ask all colleagues to come forward? Ruben, can you call those colleagues at the back to come forward?